All right, I think we're live. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. If anyone in chat can hear me, just push one. All right, I got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 457. Economics. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Doc in the description will be the video for you to follow along with. If you want to get engaged in the discussion, there'll be a link in the chat. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. All right, let me get started, man. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to be about it. So, share my screen real quick. Let me get started with my experience there last week on the continent in Rwanda. Everybody has a business there. Everybody, anybody who can breathe and walk and chew bubblegum at the same time has a business. So the country is open for business. It doesn't matter if you're a foreign national. If you're African American, they actually encourage you to start your business there. So how fast can you start your business? You start your business within 6 hours. So from the time you touch down, you pay for your visa, to the time you get to the Economic Development Board, you sign your paperwork and you're in and out in 6 hours. Just that easy. And so I want to go into some of the regional news that I think is actually relevant to the to the country itself. So let me go over this article from the newstimes.org.co.rw. So this is from Rwanda. Bugesera International Airport under redesign. So this is just a artist rendering of the airport, which is actually pretty dope and does represent the area quite well. When I was there, they were actually working on it. Experience. So the government has confirmed that some works on the Bugesera International Airport, which is under construction, has been temporarily halted to pave way for the redesigning of the facility. Works on the proposed airport, valued at about $400 million, began construction in 2017 when with completion expected by the end of 2020. So the end of this year is supposed to be expected. However, officials say that after the commencement, they realized that there were some adjustments that needed to be done on the airport to make it fit for purpose. The Minister of Infrastructure, Claver Gattet, told the New Times that the redesign is ongoing, which is consequently halted construction of some sections of the airport, adding that some construction works are ongoing. Without revealing exact aspects of the design that would be altered, Gattet said that changes are in line with making sure that the facility meets global standards and expectations. On completion of the redesign, it is then that the contractors can determine if the works shall be completed on schedule. With the redesign ongoing at the moment, not much can be done in terms of construction, hence the slow pace at the moment, but some works are still ongoing, he said. He said that implications on the time of completion and cost will only be clear after the design is complete and approved. The initial completion of the first phase was 2020. At the recent aviation summit held in Kigali in February, aviation sector stakeholders said that there remains a shortage of quality airport infrastructure to support growing diverse operations across the continent. Statistics from the International Airport Transportation Association show that with an estimated 320 international airports in Africa, 10 airports in 7 countries account for 49% of the total seat capacity and 50% of the total revenues of the entire aviation market to and from Africa. Gatet said that they have, however, been successful in mobilizing finances for the project so far. With hesitance to reveal exact details of the finances so far mobilized, he said that in partnership with Moto Ingel, they have been able to and were still mobilizing the necessary finances. We do not have money problem for the project, he said. There were previously concerns on the financing of the infrastructure project on the revelation that financiers such as Africa Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, had withdrawn from investing in the project for unclear reasons. The board of directors of the African Development Bank in November last year approved an equity investment through its Africa Infrastructure Investment Fund, or AIIB. On the sidelines of the aviation summit, Akbar al-Bakar, the chief executive officer of Qatar Airways, had said that multiple partners are likely to be interested in investing in the facility if it of global standards. I think this is poorly quoted and grammatically wrong. He said that if approached, Qatar Investment Authority, the Qatari Wealth Fund, is likely to consider investing. Expansion works for Sonotubes Burgesser International Airport Road, which stretches from Sonotubes to Akara Bridge through Kahanga town, began last month. The new airport, once complete, will have a passenger terminal covering 30,000 square meters, 22 check-in counters, 10 gates, 6 passenger boarding bridges, among others. The airport is expected to have capacity to handle about 1.7 million passengers every year. It is also expected to be among the greenest airport in Africa and possibly first in the region. The new airport is expected to promote Rwanda as a major conference hub in the region. With growing air traffic of other airlines as well as continued growth of, what just happened? Of growth of national carrier, Rwanda Air, experts say that the new facility will come in handy to support the ambitions. Yeah, this is very important because how do you get your goods in and out of the country? If you're a business, right? If you're a country, how do you get your goods in and out? So this airport is very, very necessary. And judging by the artist rendering, I would say that it's going to be very pivotal and critical. There's only one flight that goes to the United States from there. And it only happens once a day at 4:30 p.m. It's Qatar Airways. No other airline actually flies out of there to the United States from Rwanda. So that's why this is important. You may see more flights. You probably see one in the early morning and one at night. But I do think that this, from my understanding, there's only one flight a day that leaves out of there. But this is supposed to expand it. I do like the way how it looks, though. So that's why this is important, to actually look at. Yeah, we only got 4 likes, but we got 12 people watching. I find that to be very interesting. Could you please hit the like button if you're going to be soaking up the game here? We greatly appreciate it. All right, let me jump to the next item on the docket from the Africa report. Qatar Airways confirmed purchase of 49% stake in Rwanda Air. After taking a 60% stake in Kigali's new airport in December, the chief executive of the Gulf State Company confirmed on Wednesday, February 5th, in Doha that it would acquire another stake. One of the most anticipated transactions of early 2020 has been completed. In comments to the press at the Qatar Aviation Summit in Doha, Qatar, Airways Chief Executive Akbar al-Bakr confirmed on Wednesday, February 5th, that his company had acquired a 49% stake in Rwanda Air. On December 9, 2019, Qatar Airways and the Rwandan government signed an investment partnership whereby the Middle Eastern carrier agreed to take a 60% stake in the new Burgersa Airport, east of Kigali, a project worth nearly $1.3 billion and initially scheduled for completion in 2020. It will be a very efficient hub in a very stable country in the heart of Africa. We see Africa as another region that has huge growth potential. The partnership will give Rwanda Air, which has reported close to $50 million in losses each year since its creation, a solid technical and financial partner able to support its development and hub strategy. Qatar Airways also stands to benefit from the deal since a future rapprochement with will allow the carrier to bypass an embargo that forces all its flights to Africa to avoid Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Egypt. The new Kigali airport could thus attract everyday air traffic from African countries to Doha, where Qatar Airways aircraft could fly under Rwanda Air flight numbers. So I talked about that earlier, that you usually get one flight from from Rwanda that will fly to the US through Qatar Airways, and now they're talking about stepping it up with this integration. Inversely, those of Rwanda Air could be code shared with Qatar Airways. All this without fear of flying over Saudi Arabia. This will allow Rwanda Air to increase its range and Qatar Airways to reduce flight times to West and Central Africa, and possibly catch up with Emiratis and Ethiopian airlines on the continent. This is really big. It sounds boring, but this is really big. Emiratis is actually a major player in the airspace, and so is Ethiopian Air. So if you're talking about boosting up Rwandan Air, now you're talking about making them an intercontinental regional player. This is really big stuff. You're talking about boosting the economy of Rwanda twofold. However, the rapprochement between Rwanda and Qatar Airways has wider aims. In particular, it will help Doha gain access to Rwanda's arable land, diversify its source of supply, and buy Rwandan agricultural products and transportation and transport them by air. Qatar currently depends heavily on Turkey and Iran, two capricious partners. This is really big. This is really big stuff. Because as it stands right now, I think they get less than 1 million people coming to the country. But now they're talking about with this, 49% stake in Rwanda Air. This is going to further integrate Doha into the continent, but also allow Rwanda Air to expand out through the region. If they're talking about taking down, or at least not taking down, but at least competing heavily against the Emiratis and Ethiopian Airways, and this is, you're taking them from a D League perspective to the majors like NBA. That this is what they're talking about doing. Oh, somebody corrected me in chat. It's called Emirates. Yeah, you're right about that. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why I even bother calling them that. Anyways, the point that I'm making here is that business is opening up, so I want to make sure I keep this flowing. All right, this one is from Texas City NG. Africa for Future Aerospace Accelerator Program 2020 for African startups. Let me read this real quick. Africa for Future is a joint accelerator program between Airbus Global Aerospace Accelerator, BizLab, and Make It in Africa, a program by GIZ, the German Agency for International Cooperation. First launched in 2017, the hashtag Africa for Future initiative was created by Airbus BizLab with the objective to encourage and support entrepreneurship in Africa. Though Africa for Future, through Africa for Future, Airbus seeks to build bridges between the aerospace industry and the different players in Africa. For this third edition, the accelerator is open to African startups, service providers, software companies that are actively working on solutions in agriculture and infrastructure that are related to remote sensing technology. This includes automation, blockchain, artificial intelligence, data analytics, material composites, manufacturing, and more. Infrastructure refers to transportation, logistics, mapping, water monitoring, waste management, real estate, urban development, and other related areas. The program is implemented by Co-Creation Hub, a Pan-African innovation center with a track record of accelerating the application of social capital and technology for economic prosperity. Co-Creation Hub will provide strategic support and practical industry know-how to the startups and to engage multiple stakeholders within their ecosystem and facilitate the connection with these global organizations. The duration is 3 months. We are looking for startups, solution providers, companies that create value in agriculture and infrastructure sectors, have the ability to leverage remote sensing technologies, have been running operations for at least 1 year, have an existing product with traction, customers and revenue, have a strong management team, have experience leveraging partnerships to create impact. In addition to the above, companies must be registered in Africa, or at least one active member of the founding team must be a citizen of an African country. The benefits of the Africa for Future Accelerator: access to the best of Airbus technologies and expertise to create the best possible version of your solution. 250,000 credits of the Up 42 platform to access powerful analytics tools, and opportunity to present a project to the leadership of Airbus and JIS for potential collaboration. Tailored coaching to improve your value proposition and your business capacity to work with large organizations. Connection with Airbus experts, local industry experts and investors. Potential to connect with the global value chain and build commercial traction through showcase events in Africa and Europe. Viva Tech, Africa France Summit, and more. The program is designed to be a mix of virtual and physical engagements. This ensures that you are able to continue running your business during the program. Companies accepted into the accelerator starting on the 13th of April 2020 would participate in virtual coaching sessions, expert sessions with Airbus experts, physical workshops, showcase events in Europe and Africa. The timeline for physical engagements is as below, and virtual coaching sessions would hold throughout the 3-month period. So basically, for those you don't know, Airbus is the European equivalent of Boeing. So they're like the European equivalent of Boeing. And what Airbus is doing here is they're basically setting up a platform for African startups, and then working with them. And I talked about this the other day. Private-public partnerships are really the focus of these discussions. They're not talking about barbershops and beauty supply salons. They're talking about tech startups working hand in hand with the government and with larger corporations. And so what this means is that they're bringing the Silicon Valley through a framework, but they're also providing funding for it. So if you have a legitimate startup and a legitimate product to display, they will actually pay attention to that and actually make their investments and work with you side by side. We don't have anything like this in the United States at all. So this is something that we can actually learn from. Okay, we can actually learn from this. It says companies must be registered in Africa, and at least one active member of the founding team must be a citizen of an African country. Well, this won't be difficult if you're talking about Rwanda. You can start a business in Rwanda even if you're not a citizen. But what happens when you get dual citizenship? Well, you fulfill that whole entire requirement. So now we're talking about African Americans competing on the continent with their ideas, with their investment. Your money stretches if you come from America in that blue passport and you touch down and you start you register your startup and your startup business, and then you apply for citizenship. Now you're a part of this whole entire incubator. So we got to pay attention to what's going on the ground. It's important that people pay close attention to what's going on. All right. All right, this is from the African Business Magazine.com. Expand this out. The Top Employers Institute is the global HR authority on centrifying excellence in employee conditions. For 28 years, the Top Employers Institute has been dedicated to accelerating the impact of people strategies to enrich the world of work through certification, benchmarking, and connecting top employers around the world. Through our HR best practices survey, we enable organizations to access and improve their workplace environments. The leading edge international research provided by the Top Employers Institute each year determines whether an organization meets the required standard of excellence for certification as a top employer. We certify organizations in the single countries on different continents or even on a global scale. We recognize top employers based on global 4-stage certification program governed by standardized process, recognizing the conditions created by organizations for a best-in-class development environment for employees. I am proud to share an overview and key research highlights from Africa's Top Employers 2019 certification program. The 209 organizations in Africa are officially registered to participate in this year's certification program. 195 organizations spanning 31 countries, 31 African countries and 23 industry sectors achieved the Top Employers 2019 certification. 99 certified organizations will carry the South African certification, while 96 certified top employers from other African countries outside of South Africa have also been certified. So what they're talking about here is that they're creating a benchmark for employers and business on the continent, and they're standardizing this, and so it's kind of like JD Power and Associates. When the JD Power gives out an award for best in class, that's what they're talking about here. So I'm not going to read this whole entire thing because I don't think it's all that necessary, but I do think it's to let you know that this is the trajectory of what's going on business-wise on the continent. The countries with the most certified organizations are South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Egypt, Ghana, Morocco, Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Tunisia. So this is what's going on. This is what's going on. Flashway 2020 says, are Americans allowed dual citizenship? That's dependent on each African country. I do know some people with dual citizenship. I have not asked or inquired as to how they went about it, but I do think it is possible. All right. We'll get to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from the Rwandan Development Business Development Board. Special economic zones. Let me see if I can expand this out. Step-by-step guide to special economic zones licensing procedure. How to have a particular site designated as a special economic zone. This procedure applies to organizations that wish to develop a newly identified site as a special economic zone. Applications for zone designation may come from either private, public, or public-private institutions and are submitted to CSAR RDB for review and recommendation to the cabinet. Special economic zones in Rwanda are established through a prime minister's orders that converts the subject area into a legalized designated zone. How to obtain a special economic zone developer license. Any applicant, whether from the private or public sector, wishing to develop, operate, maintain, or promote a special economic zone should submit an application to CSAR. The head of CSAR issues zone developer operator licenses after obtaining the approval of the board of CSAR. When a zone is to be developed and operated on private state secured property by a private, domestic, or foreign investor, even when it is through a public-private partnership, CSAR calls for expression of interest to select one or several developers and or operators. What is a special economic zone? Special economic zone refers to geographically specified and physically secured area administered by a single body, offering certain incentives, including more liberal and specified economic regulations for business to physically locate and operate within it. In America, we kind of call that in the Black community opportunity zones. Why a special economic zone in Rwanda? Rwanda's special economic zone program is designed to address some of the domestic private sector constraints, such as availability of industrial and commercial land, availability of and the cost of energy, limited transport linkages, market access, and reduced bureaucracy and availability of skills. Designated service land is provided for small and large scale industrial and development, as well as reliable quality infrastructure, competitive fiscal and non-fiscal regulations, and streamlined administration procedures. In 2010, the Special Economic Zone Regulatory Framework was developed into the Special Economic Zone Policy, and in the year 2011, the Special Economic Zones of Rwanda law was enacted. This law spells out the guidelines for special economic zones to operate, the structures, and the roles of key players. Topaz, greetings to you. Good evening to you, my dear. Regulator. The regulatory authority is an independent agency responsible for planning the national special economic zone regime, designation of land as special economic zones, coordinating with public agencies, licensing and permitting special economic zone enterprises, developers, operators, and users, monitoring performance and ensuring compliance with special economic zone rules and legislations. The current special economic zone regulator in Rwanda is the Special Economic Zones Authority of Rwanda, based at the Rwandan Development Board. A developer is generally a private sector entity licensed by the regulator and holding the responsibility as the owner to bear the risk and financing of designing and constructing all the necessary special economic zone infrastructure and facilities. Prime Economic Zone Securitate, developer of the Kigali Special Economic Zone, also owns the land and is therefore responsible for entering into sale agreements with various users. Operator. An operator, generally a private sector entity licensed by the regulator with the responsibility to carry out the day-to-day management of the special economic zones provision of specialized support facilities and services. The developer can also be the operator. The user, a private entity engaged in commercial activities in the special economic zone, which is compliant with the prevailing rules and regulations regarding special economic zones. The special economic zone user must be holder of user license issued by Special Economic Zone Caesar. So I'm not going to read this whole entire thing, but it is in the document beneath, in the description beneath the video. And so why are we even having this discussion? Because you don't need to be an African citizen to start a business in Rwanda. They actually, I talked about this earlier in the week, that they encourage African Americans to come there and do business. And what they're saying is that they want to work more with ADOS. And so you can come off the plane, you pay for your visa, you pay $50 for your visa, because the visa is good for 30 days. And you go straight to the Economic Development Board, which is the RDB, and you go register your business. and you're in and out in less than 8 hours, in less than a work day, you're in and out. As long as you have all the paperwork and all your documentation together, the more organized you are, the faster it's going to be. And so then you can actually apply for the special economic zone, which will allow you to do business with the government. Private public partnership, that's what they're talking about. In America, we don't really have this sort of streamlined process set up in predominantly Black neighborhoods. We haven't really reached these sort of levels of integration as of yet. And so I'm saying all this because people have been asking, where are the jobs in Rwanda? Where are the jobs? Well, you got to come with your own business. Can't expect somebody to, there's no Craigslist inside, to my knowledge, there's no Craigslist of Rwanda where you're going to go apply for a job or something like that, or Indeed. You're going to have to come with your own business. You have to come up with your own business. So if you're a Black woman and you can braid hair really good, you can do all that beauty supply stuff, makeup and stuff like that. A lot of people, a lot of women look at Black women's swag in America, man, and they try to emulate it. It is what it is. There's a business for that. So what are some of the businesses that you can go into when you get to the continent? So let's keep in mind that Rwanda in particular has about roughly 11 to 12 million people, give or take. Kigali, the city that I was in, the capital, had just about 1 million people, including the tourists. Rwanda is the epicenter of the region, right there, part of the East African region, and so they are a part of a base of 150 million people, right? And so that allows you to get into the market and then expand out, because the risk is low, but the reward is high in that part of the region because of how easy it is to do to start a business and actually get on the ground up and running. In other countries, you would have to be there 24/7 or very, very frequently in order to ensure that your business stays afloat. There, you don't have to do that. You can go there, start it up, get things cracking, and then take off. And then you can expand out. So what are some of the industries that are really driving that region right now? ICT, so information communication, internet communication technologies. So basically anything that has to do with fourth industrialization for tech is big, really big there now. Agriculture, really, really big. We talked about agri-tech before. We did a whole live stream about that back in 2019. Check that out. We talked about that. Combining agriculture and fourth industrialization is going to be huge over there. Tourism is normal. I think anybody who's been to the Caribbean and stuff like that know that tourism is really big. Tourism is big there as well. It's actually a multi-million-dollar business there. Startups. That's what we talked about that earlier about the Rwanda Development Board, encouraging more Black businesses to come through, create your own startups. Now, cannabis legalization, this is still up in the air, but I would say pay close attention to that because things could change overnight. So if you pay close attention to it, the legalization of cannabis, and we start thinking about the medicinal aspect behind all of this, because Africa is starving for pharmaceuticals and or at least a stable pharmaceutical industry and holistic health, that's going to play a critical role. Many uses of cannabis through different strands. Complex has talked about this in the past, but when you really start to break it down, you start to see different companies are starting to utilize cannabis as a way to deal with opioid addiction, and also other sort of mental issues as well, seizures and things of that nature. Micro transportation. We talked about this many times before, but Rwanda is a ripe area for micro transportation because not everybody can afford a car, and not everybody wants to jump on the back of a back of a minibus. For those of you who don't know, we have they have these sort of small half buses that only fit so many people on there, and there's dozens of people out there waiting to get on these buses, and they can't get on because it's not enough seat capacity. So I say all that to say that micro transportation within these urban centers makes a lot of sense. The ability to go from one area to the next without relying on a cab is actually critical, man, because you can't walk everywhere, but there's roadway that leads to most 99% of the destinations, but there's not a whole lot of sidewalks. And so because of that, getting on an electric scooter and actually taking off, for a very small cost. I think a motorcycle trip is usually about anywhere between 50 to 95 cents, depending on how far you're going to go. And those things are very risky. I don't want to have to wait on one of these for one, to wait on one, you're gonna wait a while. You don't know what the skill level is of that motorcycle operator. So I'd much rather take my chances with an e-scooter than to get on the back of one of these motorcycles. Not that those people are bad. I'm just saying you don't know who's who on the back, who's riding these motorcycles. And so that's why micro transportation is important. And it's various forms of micro transportation. I know in the United States, a lot of hipsters use these electric skateboards, not the hoverboards, but the actual electric skateboard. Unicycles are starting to become popular now in America. So the ability to take this sort of one-wheel cycle that's electric and battery operated, to pick it up with one hand and just kind of put it to your side and walk to your next destination, or get on the train or get on the bus, something like that. Really, really dope idea. But on a continent, that would be huge to actually have a one-wheeled cycle and to ride around on that thing, especially if it could do 15 to 20 miles an hour, which is a decent speed in that area because of how high paced it is. Okay, so micro transportation is really, really huge over there, or it would be huge. So when we're talking about industries and economic opportunities to capitalize off of, micro transportation it is. We talked about blockchain before. Blockchain goes without saying. Anything involved in fourth industrialization is going to be very huge over there. Microgrids. So we're talking about creating sort of fast-moving infrastructure to address utility gaps, right? So utility gaps, renewable energies, right? Solar power, wind turbines, batteries, lithium batteries, all of that is critical. You imagine, I mean, we're just in the city when we were there, but once you start to trickle out to the outskirts, the further out you go, the less stable it becomes from a utility standpoint. Not that people don't have electricity, but because infrastructure has not trickled down that far. It may have not. People may still be relying on the land or living off the land. And so how do you modernize that environment without disrupting the culture? 100%. You can do that through micro infrastructure investments. You start connecting all of these sort of industries and whatnot, micro grids, renewable energies, micro transportation, ICT, agriculture, agri-tech, tourism tech, right? And for those of you who don't understand what I'm saying about tourism tech, meaning that, your Airbnb, that's tourism tech. That's allowing you to book a room in someone's house through an app on your phone. I don't think they have Airbnb there, but they have that. There were some talks about that sort of platform being integrated into the country itself. But hotels are really big there. Most of the hotels were sold out when I was there, so obviously, people were coming. And I would say just about every month there's a conference going on there. So out of 12 months of the year, probably about 9 to 10 months through the year, there's some form of conference going, which is actually allowing the hotels to fill themselves up. Okay. So how much is it going to cost for you to start your business? Well, that could be dependent on how far you're trying to go with your business in Rwanda. It can cost anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000. That's about it. And that seems reasonable compared to other places on the continent. You can spend $20,000 just to get a business off the ground, and it could take months, depending on whose palms you're going to grease. In Rwanda, there is no palm greasing. You pay the necessary fee, and you get your joint off the ground as long as you're organized enough. The problem with a lot of ADOS, foundational Black Americans, is that their paperwork is all janky, not really put together. So it's important to have all your dockets together before you even get there. So that when you whip out that folder and you start to register your business, it's all done in a very clean fashion. And so Rwanda falls on the list of low risk and high reward because of how the easeability it is to get into the country and do business. And you don't have to be a registered citizen or an African, native to Africa. You can actually be an African American and come there and do lots of business. Rwanda is open for business. Yeah. JD Orker in the chat says the conference business is actually on good business in Africa. It's like going on vacation. Yeah, it is. That's how I felt when I was there. That was my vacation. Just being there was a vacation for me. I don't typically take vacations because I think that's kind of a silly way to utilize your time. But that's my opinion. But when I went to that conference, I got to see things that I would not have seen otherwise, and actually enjoy the environment for what it was, and absorb the game while I was there. I didn't have to feel I had to choose one or the other. It's actually a good point. So we've talked about, many of these sectors before, but this is what's going on over there. We went over the docket from the RDB, which is the Rwandan Development Board. And that, solidifies everything you need to know. It's in the document description beneath the video. Once you click on all that, once you follow the procedures, it's actually just as simple as getting your paperwork in. What I would like to see is actually the ability to scan my paperwork from the United States and actually shuffle it in there. Imagine if I lost my luggage or something like that and I left my documents in there, I'm screwed. I have to start from scratch. But imagine if I'm traveling there and I decide that I want to, speed up the process from 6 hours to 3 hours. Well, what if I could just scan all my documents in and just upload them to the RDB, Rwanda Development Board, and actually, by the time I touch down off the plane, they've already received my documents. They're already processing it. So that's what's going on. Me personally, I see myself doing lots of business there in the coming year. You have a new international airport being built. You'll probably see that go into fruition by, between now and 2022. I know the infrastructure was halted. The development of the infrastructure was halted at some point, and then it's going to pick up later. But an airport like that, it usually takes 2 to 3 years to build. I think phase 1 has already been all but completed. And then, the final phases will probably be done by 2022. The regular airport right now is clean from what I've seen. But a new airport that rivals, that trumps all of this is going to be a game changer. Qatar Airways making their investments there, it's going to be a game changer. The ability to fly out to multiple destinations throughout the region from Rwanda, that's a game changer. I have a lot of great ideas about this, but I have a lot of positive feelings as well because of how the culture was when I got there. It's very welcoming. This is the opposite in Black America. Very, very different culture. Not because, oh, I'm a tourist and, I'm just here to, with my blue passport. No, this is different. People didn't know that, I was a tourist or anything. Actually, I wasn't a tourist, but people didn't know I was there visiting. They just knew I was there and that was it. People were down for business, man. I made so many contacts on the ground that are saying, hey, we need to talk. We need to link up. We need to actually chop up game. I said, no problem, man. We exchanged contacts, LinkedIn contacts and phone numbers and WhatsApps and stuff like that. And we were getting it cracking. So Rwanda is open for business. Everybody there is business minded, startup minded. They're not talking about getting the bag, man. They're talking about dominating the industry and dominating the region. I don't see the same, sort of ambitious attitude, out in the West. It's a little bit different. People are a lot more lackadaisical. So my advice, if you're going to go there, is make sure you bring at least $500 in cash, at the very least. And if you can open up a bank account on the continent through Barclays or EcoBank or some of these other some of these local institutions on the ground, I would do it. I would put that 500 or 2,000 inside one of these African banks just to ensure if something does go wrong, this is my assurance. High availability. access to resources and things like that, very critical when you get into that position. You're trying to make moves like that. But I would also say that you should actually visit first before you even think about establishing the business, because you can establish a business, but if you don't understand the environment, what is your business catering to? I would say take a leisurely trip throughout, look around the environment, get an idea of the lay of the land, and then do your due diligence, do your homework, and decide from there. In the time that I was there, but within 15 minutes, I saw business opportunities just coming from the airport to the hotel. Business opportunities. I was able to not even, just making mental notes, just looking around like, oh, that's crazy. I could actually do this, and that with that. So some good ideas came to my head. I talked to some other people. They had some really great ideas as well. Things that I didn't think about, things that I was thinking that they didn't think about. We were collaborating, we were coming together, and then that's how that was working. So if you think that, because you're African American and you're gonna have an uphill battle in America, and it's so hard to compete here, well, it's actually pretty easy to compete there. We've talked about this before, that all markets are pointing east, not pointing west. All markets are pointing east right now. So I would definitely say take a trip there first, go to Ghana, go to South Africa, go to Kenya, check out these places, check out Rwanda, look at the environment, do your own assessment. And then you'll come to your own resolution on what you think is viable and what's not viable. All right, man, let me get up out of here. All right, thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you've not already done so. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all your updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Document in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with and reference back to. Peace and shalom.